I can share my screen whenever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. Okay. And, okay. Announcements from Huxpa. So before we do the welcome to our event, I wanted to say welcome to Huxpa, the Houston chapter of the UXPA, that's UX Professionals Association, if you're just joining us for the first time. And there are chapters all over the world, I should say. So, you know, look them up as well. The other chapters doing awesome events right now. Our next event I wanted to mention while you're here is going to be November 19th. We do Thursdays, usually Thursdays at 7 Central time if we can get away with it, just for consistency. So there a couple of great UX researchers from Melbourne, Australia, and they are doing an event called Defending the Importance of UX Research. And they're really funny, so I hope that you can make it and recommend it to people you know. Yeah, we'll be recording that as usual. I should say this event and all of our events will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards. And you can find us by searching for UXPA Houston or Huxpa, so just HUXPA. As always, if you'd like to get involved, just email us at uxpahouston, that's one word, at Gmail. And yeah, please check out our meetup page to join the Slack community and look for us on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. Our meetings usually run about an hour, but we're pretty casual these days because there's no physical event space for us to get kicked out of. So yeah, I will post a link to the YouTube video after it's uploaded, and that will be posted to the Slack, to the Facebook group, to LinkedIn, and to the meetup page in the event comments. So you can find it there after the fact. And then I think that's it for me, unless there are any other announcements anybody else has. Otherwise, I will, you know, personal announcements, life announcements. I will turn it over to Jasmine to introduce our presenter tonight.
Yeah, hi everyone. So as you know, we will be hearing from Grace Ling tonight. Grace is a self-taught designer, and she will just be sharing her journey and the things she's learned and giving us some tips on how you can also land an internship as a self-taught designer. And just to read a little bit of her bio so you have some background on her. She is currently a UX design intern at Electronic Arts, and she's also the founder and design lead of Design Buddies, her own design community. And outside of that, she has her own art business. She she's a content creator, and yeah, just want to welcome her. And right now we'll hear from her, and then at the end we'll just have a Q&A session. Right, Grace, you can take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on. I'll share some slides, and this will be recorded, so you guys will see the slides. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for having me on. And let me just present. And throughout this presentation, I will be going over kind of my journey and how I went to engineering / pre-med to design. And then later at the end, I'll talk about how I landed my internship and translate that into a full-time offer. And then throughout my presentation, I'll also be looking at the chat. So feel free to leave any questions. If it's relevant to the current topic, I'll answer it. Otherwise, I'll hold it up to the end as well. So yeah, welcome everybody. Yeah, so a little bit of myself. Yeah, design intern at EA and run Design Buddies. I'm also currently still a student. I'm studying computer science and engineering at Santa Clara University in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born and raised in California. I've lived here all my life. And I have a lot of side hustles. I have my own art this is my table at anime conventions. Fun fact, this photo is actually me at Crunchyroll Expo last year with Arula Kuma, one of my favorite characters. And I also like to do a lot of social media and blogging and create content for that as well. And so for today, I'll talk about a little bit about my story and how I got to where I am today and the things I've learned along the way, and some projects I've done on my own without like outside of school to help me lead to my internship. And I talk about my long 6 month or about 5 or 6 month internship search of a lot of ghosting, getting ghosted, also learning a lot, getting rejected, and the things I've learned along the way. And then later I'll talk about how I networked my way into getting an internship, because I actually got in without applying and I spent $0 learning design. So I'll tell you like how I did that and how I reached out to mentors and everything. And I'll literally be sharing some resources and ending it with a question and answer session. And so growing up, I've always wanted to do something creative. I want to be an anime artist. I was that kid in class who just randomly screamed to keep people on their toes, and I would draw comics. I would never imagine myself studying anything engineering or medicine related. But yeah, so growing up, I wanted to do that. I've also ran cross country and track, and I was really into social media and blogging. And so I also had a Tumblr blog on the side. So I was always just like creating content, creating art, creating stories. However, I came to college as a bioengineering pre-med major because I wanted to learn how to biohack myself to run faster. Because I've also had dreams of running an Olympics, and I thought I want to like learn more about the human body so I can engineer myself to run faster. And growing up in the Bay Area, a lot of kids and teachers were always convincing me that the only path to success is to become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. So that's why bioengineering combines like engineering and medicine. But I learned the hard way that I shouldn't be doing something just because it looks good on my resume. And so I quit my research role and went into game design, computer science, and I went this virtual reality lab that opened up my school. And I learned how to make VR games by watching YouTube tutorials. And from that, I learned that I'm not limited to my major. I can reach out to these online resources to learn anything I want. I don't have to stick with bioengineering, even though like I'm studying that field, and it's okay. And after I graduated my undergrad last year, I started my art business, Candy Leaf Designs, because I always wanted to just like table at anime conventions just for fun. And I never really let that childhood interest of mine go. Just because it makes me happy. And then now, after some time, so I graduated my undergrad in bioengineering last year, and then I started my grad school at the end of last year, like near the fall. So my second year of grad school, studying computer science and engineering, because I knew I want to work somewhere in tech, but I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to work. But then later along the way, I stumbled across this class called Students Who Design, discovered design, decided to make my whole career switch to it, and started design buddies along the way as well, because I actually faced a lot of backlash and a lot of discouraging professors telling me to stay in my lane, how I should be doing design. So I went and seeked out my own design friends online and created design buddies. So a lot of lessons I learned along the way, definitely not a linear journey, a lot of twists and turns along the way. But that's where I'm at right now. And I think design is the field that I actually want to go into after so many different random career changes. And so when I graduated, this is what I wanted to be when I graduated from undergrad. I've wanted to be a game designer and developer. This is like I thought I was like 99.9% sure. I made a game, I did an internship as a virtual reality robotic surgery game developer, meaning I made games to train surgeons to do surgery at Intuitive Surgical. It was super fun, but I learned that the medical devices industry probably like isn't really for me. Like the culture is definitely really different compared to EA, which is a gaming company, and also Internet Girls Make Games. So I kind of got a taste of different cultures and different companies, and just like seeing how people interact and what kind of hobbies they have. Because when you're looking for like a role, it's also important to consider like what kind of industry it's in, and it should be on a topic that you're passionate about. And so this is Selfie, my biology-inspired virtual reality role-playing game, where you become a cell in VR and learn about biology that way, just to gamify learning. And so now I'll talk about the projects I've done along the way. So this is basically everything I've done in a span of from October 2019 to May 2019, when I got my internship. I took this class called Students Who Design, not sponsored, but it just like helped me understand the whole product design process and what exactly is design thinking and applying that to your project. I also did a lot of hackathons. Total, I did a few Adobe Creative Jams. So I total probably 9 hackathons and design challenges. So hackathons is you often work with like software engineers, product manager. It's a great way to increase or improve in your teamwork skills and communication skills, as well as design challenges where I work with other designers to deliver a prototype instead of an actual working application with code and everything. So those two are great ways to just get practice working with people, also practice designing and everything as well. And those are also free, and it's really easy to get into as well. And I learned so much as my first few projects. I've also did a few startups and freelance work just with friends, and friends introducing me to people to get more experience as well in products that ship. I also had my own art business, Canopy Designs, not exactly tied to UX design, but it kind of helped me understand the business fundamentals and just product thinking overall and some branding. And then I started Design Buddies, which I continue to run to this day. And so when I got questions, like when I think of what projects I want to do to kind of boost up my portfolio or to get real world experience, I definitely like to focus on products that ship. So because oftentimes in interviews and in the real world, you'll get asked about how would you measure success? And like after you launch, like what kind of metrics will you be collecting to validate your designs? So that's why instead of like doing too many design challenges, I really encourage like doing hackathons or working for startups so you can like work on a product from end to end, because that part, it's like simulates more real world environment too, and you get asked like a ton of questions about what's like how post launch is like afterwards as well. And it just like overall, like for your portfolio, definitely focus on projects that ship first. If you don't, then definitely a hackathon or design challenge is okay, but definitely when you're looking for projects to do, think of how like feasible it is and how it will look like and operate in the real world, because that's when you have constraints to deal with instead of like a personal project where you can go all out. And so Students Who Design was that class. So I get this question a lot. I'm not sure what they're going with this anymore, because I think they're a 3-week class now, but I haven't really seen much going on. But this class changed my life when I took it as a 10-week live class. So if you guys are interested in taking any classes, I would definitely try to find something similar. This is a free class, and what made this class really helpful for me was that it took me through the end-to-end product design and design thinking process while walking me through a project. So not only did I learn the theories and concepts, I got to apply them to an actual project and get feedback from instructors and other students along the way with weekly meetings. And they also helped me answer questions with career help and not sponsored. But just like generally, like when I was starting out, so a combination of learning theory, applying the theory while I was learning it, and also getting feedback, because you don't know what you don't know. So that's why having a mentor or instructor to give you feedback is super valuable. And also having a mentor or instructor to give you career help and advice and like kind of guidance of how to navigate this process. Because when I was starting out, I had no professors at my school that was in design. There's no design department at my school. So I really had to seek out online help, and definitely designers are generally really helpful online. So it's pretty easy to approach people for help if they say yes. And so this is a project I did. The project was to pick an app and find a pain point through user research interviews and design a solution for that. So my solution was Discord bookmarks, because I use Discord a lot. Design Buddies is built on Discord, and I'm passionate about Discord. And so my pain point I found was that people have trouble keeping up with messages. So I designed a bookmarking feature. People can bookmark messages and categorize them on their own account. And so this is another project I've done for a hackathon. This was done in 24 hours. I stayed up for 36 hours straight. This is a hackathon before COVID. It was in February of this year at my school, and we actually won first, which is super exciting. And the app we made was called Yeats. It's a web scraping tool to find low-cost eats around you. So, because you have yeet when you find low-cost eats. So that's how Yeats came about. And it was a great experience working with developers. I kind of acted like as a designer, like I got a big misconception misconception I get from people in hackathons that you have to know how to code. Definitely that is not a requirement, because at a hackathon, you're working with a team to build a project. It's not all code, because when people are judging, they ask you, how would you measure success? Like what kind of business value would you have, and how does the overall user experience feel like? And so as a designer, you can definitely contribute a lot to that marketing, business, and design user experience aspect that at a hackathon too. So don't let the fact that you might not have any coding background stop you from doing hackathons, because there's always ways you can contribute and help carry your team to win. Because at most of the hackathons I went through, I didn't even write a single line of code, but I helped market and helped develop the product strategy for my team to win. And so also make linked up ways to keep track of your LinkedIn connections, the Chrome extension, another fun hackathon. And yeah, so definitely projects are really, really important. But another thing that is sometimes overlooked upon for UX designers is UI design. User interface design is definitely an important skill to have, especially when you're working your portfolio, because some designers will say like, oh, I only care about someone's like problem-solving skills. But in reality, when I talk to recruiters and hiring managers, they're looking over so many portfolios at the same time, and they're only spending like 30 seconds or like a minute on their portfolio. So it's important to have good visual design skills to help your portfolio stand out, so they spend more time on it as well. So daily UI challenges is a great way to improve on your UI design skills. And daily UI challenge, it's like this website you can sign up for. Just Google it, it will show up, and it sends you an email each day about like prompts like, oh, design like an item selection screen, design a calendar app, design a leaderboard. And you can also like use, a lot of people do this on Dribble. You can look at some examples, some inspirations, and just try to create your own user interface design. And this is what helped me improve my visual design skills in the beginning, is to just take a prompt and just like think of how I want to visually lay out and how this information architecture look like. This is definitely not a substitute for actual product or UX design, but just a way to supplement your design adventure. So just like take 30 minutes each day to like do a little design, and it adds up from there. But definitely this is completely different than UX. So UX is solving a problem. This is just making things look pretty, but at the same time, it's important because it captures people's attention. So definitely as a UX and product design, you have to balance both sides. And so I learned a lot from doing all these projects before I landed my internship. Learned a lot, making sure I do a lot of user research and testing, because oftentimes, like for me at least, like when I was working on projects, I just want to make something look pretty, you want to ship it out. But then user research and validating your designs is super, super important, because design is all about solving problems, not just making things look pretty. Just like making sure that you are involving the users at every step, and just like working with people, listening to their problems, and making sure you're solving the right problem while balancing both user needs and business goals. And having post-launch metrics determined from the beginning is also really important. How would you measure success, and making sure that all your design decisions ties to some metric, whether it's cost saving and revenue generating for the business, and actually solves the user problem and while meeting the business goals at the same time. Oh, so question, how did you learn user research and usability testing? Great question. So user research, it's a huge field. So in UX, there's design and research. And so there's UX researchers for that, but generally research as a designer, it's also important to know user research as well, because it depends on your team. Like at my team at EA, I also do some user research to help out the user researchers. And so there's both qualitative and quantitative metrics you can, like user research you can do. So qualitative meaning how people feel. So qualitative metrics, qualitative research is kind of like interviewing people one-on-one, focus groups, and just like seeing like what works, what doesn't work, what the pain points are, how users perceive things, and try to understand their experiences. And quantitative metrics is how important or how many times the user clicks something, or like how many signups does this have, so all numbers and everything. So in user research, there's like two different branches we can focus on. Some user researchers focus on qualitative, some user researchers focus on quantitative. Usually in large companies, like there's a separation between those two. And usability testing is just basically making lists of tasks for you. It's testing how easy the product is to use. So you oftentimes write up a series of tasks for the user to go through in their app and see if they're able to solve them, or able to understand how or able to actually complete the task. And how I learned that was honestly through my internship, and also through Students Who Design, and just like reading some articles online. But the best way to learn something is to read the fundamentals and actually do it yourself. And I guess like an actionable item you could take away is to just say you have a project and like you went to a design challenge and like maybe before you actually make the product, you can send out a survey to people to see how they react, or like how, like to assess the needs of that as well. And usability testing, just like there's like apps like out there like Marvel where you can like do remote usability testing, but I'll just try to like run people through my app and see how they react to it. And just basically put your app in front of people or put your idea in front of people and see how they react. So I guess that's like an easy way to quickly user test something. But yeah, another lesson I've learned through my design projects is teamwork. Working in a team is super important as a designer. It's not just pixel pushing, like you have to work with a lot of engineers, PMs, so working as a team, communicating effectively is really, really important to making sure that you continually progress and there's no blockers along the way. And also keep learning, like everything is so always changing, like design, all these technology fields are changing and everything as well, so there's always something new to learn. So oftentimes like people like to read books, read Medium articles, attend conferences to stay on top of all the trends and everything too, because never stop learning because there's always something new going on. And so I'll just talk really quickly about my business. And a lot of lessons I've learned from that. And so I like, as a designer, oftentimes like I like to have different side hustles and stuff like that. And I learned a lot from art as well. So I had my art business, Canleaf Designs, and it was like a fun project. I never like really kind of ignored my childhood dream. I always just like had that. I don't plan on ever working on this full time. It's just a very small pet project of mine, just for fun. But I learned a lot of like business things from Canleaf Designs. And I'm just inspired by like animals, desserts, and science. I create some merch and I work with like different vendors. And yeah, this is my little logo. It's a candy-shaped bunny on a leaf with a leaf on it, so it's candy leaf. I table at conventions and anime conventions. Feel free to let me know in the chat if you also like going to anime conventions because they are super fun. Kind of missed them as well. Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. I also make pins, and as a designer, it's also good to have, I don't know, for me, like, a lot of people get kind of intimidated away from design because they think they have to have like illustration skills, but I honestly don't think it's like really important. I just like have this for fun. But yeah, it's actually on my Etsy shop, Kevin. But yeah, anime conventions are super fun, and I also make boba merch. Feel free to comment your favorite boba in the chat as well. Like I just love boba, desserts, and animals and plants. I just kind of draw things I like to do, and also biology as well. And yeah, so I learned a lot from starting my own business because oftentimes the designer, it's also important to know the business side of things. And so I learned a lot of marketing trends, like understanding customers, knowing their pain points, hopping on trends. Like that's why I have so much boba stuff. And also networking with people and just like getting to know other art business owners, other customers, and getting like growing my customer base and knowing all these soft customer service skills. Also using social media and also like making sure keeping people excited and everything as well. And that all like helps me and as a UX designer. Oh, I love green tea boba as well. I love matcha boba. And unfortunately, I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't have milk foam. But it looks really Instagrammable. Fun fact, I used to have a boba Instagram before COVID happened. But yeah, great choices, everybody. Boba is amazing. And so links to my other project called Design Buddies. So I created it in April this year, mid-April. And in 6.5 months, we landed over 10,000 members, which is super amazing. You guys can join with the link below. We actually got partnered with Discord. That's why we have a fancy link over there. And yes, it's just a resource for anyone to kind of partake in. We have a lot of, everything's free because we want to be inclusive, meaning inclusive for everybody. So we have free events, networking. We're partnered with amazing design people list. So we have our mentorship program as well. We have a lot of guest speakers and more, and just like really active community. Guys can all join if you guys want to. And we had just like meetups on Figma, just another meetup idea for fun. And I learned a lot about community management. I just learned to just like make it a safe space, making sure ground rules are set, making sure you have good moderators, and also working as a team. Having a strong team of admins to delegate tasks is super important. And just focusing on target demographic at first. So we started focusing on students first, and just like having a lot of events, talks, collaborations for engagement as well. And for Design Buddies, I can talk a little bit more about it if you guys have any questions. But I do a lot of user and market research and testing. So it's technically like a UX project for me as well. I look at a lot of other design communities. I assess, I measure both like qualitative and quantitative metrics from people and Design Buddies to kind of ideate events and kind of iterating upon the way, just like metrics and just having goals and having a roadmap set. And so now I will talk a little bit about my internship search. Well, actually, it's a whole section. So it was a long journey of a really tough road, but it's the feeling of feeling lost and discouraged is only temporary because you'll always be learning something along the way. And so for my internship process, so this is from January to May. So Liz asked, have you used any books to learn UX principles? If so, which one do you like? Yeah, I've actually haven't read any books, to surprise. I know it's good to read books, but for me, I just like learn for me, I'm a really hands-on person, so I just kind of like want to do things, and I learned the most through just getting feedback. I've also like listening to podcasts, like going to conferences as well to like kind of know the latest trends and stuff like that. So most of my learning came from just like looking at trends, looking at engaging with Design Buddies, like engaging with people, going to conferences and stuff. And yeah, like one day I also want to read books. Favorite design tools. I love Figma. Figma's the best. Like there's a vector tool. Sometimes it can replace XD and everything as well, or I mean Illustrator as well for Photoshop sometimes. But generally just Figma. If there's like so many tools, but as a designer, just want to learn one, I would recommend Figma to start off with. And Webflow for building websites. So Figma and Webflow are my favorite design tools. Podcasts, I can't think of any on top of my head, but I have them on my website. I can like link it there afterwards as well. But yeah, so my internship search, 26 applications that I sent. I mostly applied to like mid to large size companies with like games and social media type companies. And naturally, I got ghosted by most people because I didn't have any connections in industry. And usually, if you work for a big company, like Google, you have to know somebody to at least give you a referral, because they get millions of applications every year. So Jordan asked, were you applying to any openings or just applying to companies I want to work at? Yeah, I was only applying to companies I want to work at because I like to focus on quality over quantity. Like I talked to some of my friends and they applied to like 500 companies, and like every time I submit one application, it's like you have to fill out, like you submit your resume and then you have to fill out all your work history and stuff. And that kind of get long. And so for me, I focus on networking and just like quality over quantity, but that's just my personal preference and it worked for me. So yeah, I sent in, after 26 applications, I got 6 interviews, all with referrals though. I never ever got an interview from just applying online. 5 vendor rounds actually, and just like 3 rejections and 2 COVID canceled. As Chia asked, do you apply for any remote intern? Yes, all companies are technically all remote right now. So all positions are technically remote, but I haven't seen any internships specifically for remote. But then again, it's been since May, I haven't looked at any internships. Or I have no idea how the status is like. So that might be changing. So I don't know if any remote interns exist, but I personally have not applied to any, because this was like kind of March or May, when March/April, when companies didn't even know if they're going to go all remote this summer. And yeah, so Sky asks, how do you deal with the rejection, not letting it affect your self-esteem? Great question. I used to struggle with this a lot. So for rejections, I've learned that rejection is a redirection, because oftentimes when companies reject, it's not because you're a bad designer or you're not experienced enough. It's that because they found someone with a better fit, or like found someone with just like more experience in something else. So rejection is totally normal. Everybody goes through that, and it's okay. It's totally normal to feel like at least a little sad or at least a little discouraged before. But personally for me, I like to see it as an opportunity to grow, and in the sense that I always ask for feedback along the way. So if I ever get rejected, I always reach out to my recruiter or interviewer. Like I always connect with them on LinkedIn afterwards and ask them like, yeah, I had a great time interviewing with you. I had a great time working with the company. I know I end up not getting a job, but would love to get some feedback and stay connected. So that way it shows that your willingness to grow. You're self-aware, which is definitely things that hiring managers look at, but also keeps your connection warm in case of something else else opens up the same company, they'll reach back out. So that's actually what happened to me at EA. I actually interviewed, that was one of my rejections at first. I interviewed for one of the gaming teams, and I did really well, but then like they really wanted to have me on, but like they ended up taking someone else because she had more experience working in entertainment. But we stayed connected, and now we're good friends. Now they're in design buddies, they're actually mentors there. So always, even if you get rejected, your interviewer can be another connection for another potential mentor. And yeah, for me, I also have a really thick skin naturally just by doing a lot of things. So I like to say like, thank you next in a sense, but also thank you next, but like, how can I grow from this? And so I always ask for feedback. And so Kevin asked, how do you seek out the right connection? Yeah, I guess I just reach out to everybody who seems interesting, and whoever responds will be nice. And so my process was, I sent out 400 connection requests to people on LinkedIn. I later will go through the template I sent. You guys can take a look at that. Had 30 coffee chats, and one of them led to my internship. But yeah, so kind of going back to my presentation. So for rejections, when I asked for feedback, this is what I got from people. So another one was for AAA game company. The feedback I got was I didn't play enough first-person shooters because they make a lot of FPS games, and naturally I got rejected because I didn't play enough of their type of games, which is totally normal, totally as expected. Nothing to do with me as a designer, just my experience or my background does not 100% align. Or maybe there was like another intern who applied who had similar experience I did, but also more experience playing these games. So yeah, so there's a lot of factors that come into rejection. It's not always you don't have enough experience. It could just be they found someone with like slightly better fit, but then you can always stay connected with them. It doesn't mean they don't like you. They still like want to help you. So because interviewers and hiring managers like want you to succeed, but sometimes they might find someone with a better fit. And so another rejection that happened was with actually my first ever product design interview, was with a FANG company, and I was their app critique interview. It's my final round at my first ever product design internship interview, and there was an app critique. So app critiques, I'll later talk about different types of interviews, but app critique is you basically run through an app with an interview and talk about the product strategy and how the app aligns to it. And the question I got asked was how to redesign the logo of Venmo, which is like a branding question, not a product design question. So that question threw me off, and I was like near the beginning, and by the interviewer's face, I knew I took an L. But kind of learning from that, just kind of reflecting and asking other people from that company, like how they would answer that question, I learned that I should take a step back. Whenever you're confused during an interview, or just like might not know, like a little thrown off of the question, just take a step back and ask why. So for this question, I'll be like, so how would redesigning the logo of Venmo solve a particular user need or business goal? And what's wrong with it? Or what is missing from the current logo? And just like kind of digging a little deeper to try to understand that question even more. So not only like it helps you understand the question more, but also demonstrates your critical thinking skills. So whenever you're stuck in an interview, just keep asking more clarifying questions to making sure that you're understanding it correctly. Also template, yeah, I'll share that in a few slides next. And so these are like the 4 different types of internship interviews. Usually for full-time, it's a bit different. There's a lot more portfolio presentations, but for all types of interviews. So for internship, generally there's about 2 or 3 rounds. My intuitive surgical internship, not design related, but that one had 5 rounds. So it really depends by company, but generally this is kind of like from my experience, also from other people's experience, this is kind of what you'll get. So the first is the behavioral, which is like common to every single job, where you ask about like, oh, like tell me about yourself, tell me about your greatest accomplishments. So, and for these types of interviews, really focus on your storytelling and process instead of just like listing your accomplishments. Talk about the time you won, like you can say you won an award, but talk about like what struggles you overcame or like what kind of things you learned to get there. And also like for me, there's a lot of common questions like, yeah, tell me about yourself, tell me about what your strengths and weaknesses, those kind of questions. So I would, since interviews are all virtual, I would make a doc of all these common questions and bullet point my answers. And later during the interview on Zoom, I would actually split my screen. So half the screen would be my interviewer, half the screen would be my interview questions. So I have everything in front of me as well. That's another trick I do for remote interviews. And when I'm answering these questions, I always look up the company culture, what they value, what their mission statement is. Like look up company name, mission statement. You see all these talks about that. All these documentation about that. So making sure that you can like have your answers aligned to these values just as close as possible, because in these behavior interviews, they're assessing for culture fit, meaning like, oh, this person's value aligned to the company's values. So that's why it's good to like kind of look these up and kind of stage your questions based on that, but also be honest, because people can usually tell if you're faking it and if you just like sound super fake. So you don't have to highlight all the values, just highlight the ones that stand out most to you as well. And when you're interviewing for a company, you're also interviewing them to see if there's a good fit as well. So making sure you're doing that, just doing some research, what their goals are and stuff like that before you go into your behavioral interview. And the next common type of interview is the portfolio review. So behavioral and portfolio are usually like all internships and full-time roles look at these two things. So now they want to assess your work. And so for this portfolio review interview, you want to create a slide deck and really showcase your storytelling and how you walk them through like 2 or 3 case studies, sometimes 1. It really depends on how much time you have and how many questions they ask. So prepare up to 2 or 3 case studies, and making sure you create a slide deck as well to bring on top of your portfolio, and just keep going back to the problem and like explain your design decisions and how they relate to the problem you're solving. And so, yeah, those are really 2 most important types. So generally the best way to practice is honestly just do like mock interviews with people, and just like getting practice presenting along the way as well. It's super important. And the third type of interview is app critique. This is not all companies, but some companies do it, like Facebook. So they kind of like ask you to walk you through an app, like you, an interviewer, choose an app in the beginning, and you talk through like, oh, what app is this? What problem is this app trying to solve? And like, how does this app try to solve it? What are its competitors? And how does each feature tie into the overall product strategy, highlighting the visual designs, interaction design. So just having a little bit of knowledge about everything, not everything, but just like a little bit like problem solving skills and how like, oh, this color relates to this target audience, and just like little things like that. Just like critique the app instead of listing the features, like critique like, oh, Spotify has like the social feature because it wants to encourage music sharing with friends. Just like go a little layer deeper than that and just prepare to explain product decisions during these app critique interviews. And next you get design challenges, which is oftentimes a take-home design challenge. Google does this, where they send you home, usually a week long. So Google, for me, so this is just like, these 4 interviews are just like all from my 1-person experience, what I've encountered. So Google sent a app critique or a design challenge where you give in like a 2-sentence design prompt and you design anything you want, like an app, a website, in 1 week. And so it's a time crunch, but they kind of assess your product thinking skills and everything and just give you something like a take-home assignment to do, kind of like a coding challenge, but for designers. And so, yeah, so definitely for all these things, focus on storytelling and the problem, just making sure that everything you're designing solves a problem, whether it's for user need, business goals, balancing those 2. So whenever you're stuck, just think, if you're thinking of like, oh, should I design this feature, or should I talk about this feature? Ask yourself, does this feature actually solve user need, or does this feature ultimately drive the company more revenue? So yeah, so whenever you're feeling lost, just go back to the fundamentals, like go back to what problem you're trying to solve, and making sure that everything makes sense. Because design, it's not art. Design is solving problems. Art is expressing yourself. And so now I'll talk about networking and how I got my internship at EA without applying. And networking is all about getting to know others. It's not asking for a job. It's not being transactional. It's making a new friend. And so definitely, like, when you network, you want to make sure, usually networking happens on LinkedIn, you want to make sure your profile is complete, so people don't think you're a fake profile. That's really, really important. And sometimes you want to engage the community, because sometimes people respond more to people who interact with their content, and now you want to reach out like that. So just making sure you're like, have a complete profile, that's like a min, and then you can like probably engage in stuff like that if you feel comfortable doing that. Yeah, so complete your LinkedIn profile, and like on LinkedIn, they add like this all-star status. So if you have that, that means your profile is all good to go, so you're ready to network. And definitely also so good to complete your LinkedIn profile, because recruiters and hiring managers filter on LinkedIn. They go on LinkedIn a lot to search for candidates as well. So having this completed is super important. Not only good first impression when you're reaching out, but people could reach out to you via LinkedIn. And also another thing you could do is engaging with the community. So for me, I personally started posting on LinkedIn this year, actually, like in March. But that honestly changed my life because it helped me like build my personal brand, stand out and stuff. So I would like just share a lot of like stories and lessons I've learned from it, takeaways from events as well. And yeah, like let me know in the chat if you are afraid of posting on LinkedIn, because I know that was pretty scary for me in the beginning as well. And it can be really intimidating because like LinkedIn, like I feel like the culture has changed, definitely changed throughout the few years. Like before, when I first joined LinkedIn in 2017, I was in college, and like it just seemed like a mysterious place where people just like flex their accomplishments. Like, oh yeah, I'm excited to announce I got this software engineering role at like Sweet Company, or just like at Fang Company and stuff like that. And I just like felt like a small potato. I was like, oh, this is so scary. And so yeah, I definitely felt very scared. But definitely feel like after the pandemic though, like things have changed a lot on LinkedIn. Now people are sharing like, oh, I just got laid off, but here's some of the new hobbies I've developed and like things I've learned along the way. So people are becoming more friendly, more personable. And like LinkedIn has honestly become like one of my favorite social media platforms because people are just like generally super supportive. Like sometimes you get these weird people, but like that's like really little. I don't owe them any attention. So like, yeah, so most people are generally super nice. And yeah, so like don't be afraid to like put yourself out there. And for LinkedIn, just some post ideas you can do. Posting actually helps. It helped me affected my decision. It helped me stand out like in like with hiring managers, but also with our university recruiting team at EA. So it did play a role in me getting a return offer and getting budget for that as well. So that's why posting on LinkedIn, developing personal brand, like honestly helped my life a lot. Because it helped me stand out and bring the company good image. And so when you're posting a lot on LinkedIn, companies, well, it's like a definitely plus because it shows that you're engaged and you represent a company and you give value to the community beyond the company and ultimately make the company look good. So even though that might not be your goal, that's not my goal. I love EA, but also like, you know, want to just build on a personal brand. That's also a good thing to do, just because like naturally if you are famous on LinkedIn, or not famous, but just like post on LinkedIn, give a lot of value, it shows to hiring managers that you like want to help others as well. So later if you want to maybe move to a manager position, that's definitely a plus, because having mentorship, having teaching experience or mentoring experience is definitely something they look for. But that's kind of going like beyond the internship topic. But yeah, so definitely, but if you ever want to be a manager one day, definitely think about ways you can mentor others people, because that's a big factor of how managers get hired or how managers get decided upon. But yeah, so I like to post stories, lessons learned, interesting books, articles read, just like takeaways from things. Sometimes I like to share my projects and what I've learned, and just like, yeah, and just like sometimes people have like their own personal hashtags and stuff like that as well. But posting definitely, it can feel really intimidating. Sometimes people say that it can build their personal brand from just commenting. So just like engage in people's content as well, and commenting on people's content helps them notice you, and you can like reach out that way as well. So it's not like a cold connect or cold message as well. So yeah. And so like the reach out, so this is me sending 400 connection requests. When you reach out to people, the goal is to learn their story and not to sell yourself. Like people would, this will like, if you like make it clear that that intention is to like get a job, then it would be really, really off-putting to them. At least it was also really off-putting to me when people did that to me. And also like, just like make it the purpose to make a friend. And I would also personalize my message, talk about who I am, and like kind of like brief overview, like, oh yeah, I'm a student studying this at this school, looking to career in UX design development. And yeah, and I also ask about same school. Like if people go to the same school, I'll put something like go Broncos or something like that, or go school mascot, just to like kind of break the ice a little bit. And so this is the message I sent 400 times. And so when I was deciding who I wanted to send message to, I looked up UX design director or UX design senior manager and filter by company and filter by location and just like added all of them and just like look at their people suggested list and added everybody who seemed interesting or who seemed like they're in a hiring position. And so I did this 400 times. I was just like, hello, I'm grad student studying UX design, or not studying, I'm not actually studying UX design, I'm studying computer science and engineering, but looking to pursue UX design. So like who I am and my goal and like what my intentions of reaching out to people are. So like we'd love to learn about how you got to where you are today. And I just leave it at this, keep it short and sweet, because this leaves room for people to answer the question and however format they prefer. Because some people, they want to kind of hop on a call, some people want to hop on a Zoom call, some people want to just respond via text message. And so yeah, so this is how you kind of break the ice. This is a very low commitment message. I was did this 400 times. And yeah. And so if you actually get a call with them as well, so this is what I'll do. Once sometimes when I send the previous message, like they would want to hop on a phone call, or sometimes I would ask them if they're able to do like a phone or a Zoom call, they would say yes. And usually I schedule like a 15 or 30-minute meeting. And then this is what I would do. Like I would basically do an informational interview. The purpose is to like just find out more about their background and learn about how we can help each other. So for informational interviews, generally just go with the flow. Like the mistake I made in the beginning was like number one, I was too nervous, and number two is I hinted too much at a job. And so when I was super nervous, it made the other person feel nervous as well. And usually when I'm reaching out to directors and senior managers, they got there because they had experience mentoring people or developing new talent. So they're generally really understanding and just like really chill people. And so there's no need to be nervous or try not to be nervous. Like in the beginning, it's super hard because they're like, oh my God, the director, but they're like 10, they have so much more experience than I do. I'm just a small potato. And like, but they're like super nice. So I would just like start off by asking them about how they got into design, what kind of things they learned along the way, and just like highlighting on common things I have in my background. And the goal is just to find things in common, just connect on a personal level. Let's say you both ran cross country and track and like talk about that as well. And just like ask questions about how, like if they're self-taught, I would ask them like, how did you learn? And like, how did you like find what resources to look into? Because there's like so many online and stuff like that. And also people love talking about themselves, so like they're generally really open to connecting or getting on a chat. And so sometimes like when I'm getting nervous, I get stuck. So I like to make a list of questions or just like go ask questions like, oh yeah, I see that we both like ran cross country and track. Like how did the things that you learned from the thing we both had in common help you as a UX design director today? And just like kind of learn from their experiences, and you just like learn so much more about lessons that are not easily Googleable. And you also like make a new friend. And I also like to learn about favorite projects and lessons learned, because this gives you an idea of the company culture and like what kind of things they work on. And like if they work for a company, work on this project, you can see like kind of get an idea of what designers work on at that company too. And you can also learn what they've learned. So you can apply them yourself as well. And I like to also ask them what their career goals are, because also really curious, because like some people want to go VP route, or some people want to just retire early. So it's always interesting learning about their goals and learn about what they're doing every day to get there. And you learn about them as well, and just like make a deeper connection. So the overall goal is to make a friend. Yeah, number one, don't sell yourself. The mistake I made was that I asked too many questions. I asked questions about like this. So one of my first ever information interviews, I asked this question. And it was kind of off-putting. I asked like, so what traits do you look for when you're hiring interns? And don't ask that at all. Or maybe ask something like, oh, so I see that you also work in social media. Like what kind of lessons have you learned from working in the social media industry? And how would you recommend somebody who is interested in working in social media to focus on? So frame your question like that instead. Just like state your observation and how you want to get there, not be too direct. And so just say it subtly. So you can definitely ask the same question, but just like frame it in a way that it's for personal development, not just like go straight away like, oh yeah, because that shows that it kind of shows difference in intention and stuff like that too. So like even though I really want to learn like, oh, what do they actually look for when hiring people, but I would just say like, hey, I see that you work in this industry, but I'm also really curious about learning more about the industry. Like, what do you recommend I do? Instead of like, oh, what do you look for? And so that just shows like a more growth mindset than like compared to like, oh, what do you want me to, or like, what do you look for? Like being too direct. And so another ways you can network with people, doesn't have to all be on LinkedIn, is there's like a lot of conferences, Facebook groups. These are some my favorite groups that exist. There's some Discord groups, Slack groups, Meetup, and everything as well. So there's a lot of places you can network. LinkedIn might be a little intimidating, so sometimes I like to go to events from these groups and meet people that way and connect with them afterwards. It doesn't always have to be LinkedIn, and sometimes people don't even check LinkedIn. So you can always reach out to people on any of these platforms as well. And I definitely met professional connections on Facebook too. Usually it's a little, people generally don't, but I joined a lot of professional Facebook groups, and I met like people that I network with like on Facebook. We just add each other and stuff. But definitely personal preference, because people have different levels of comfort for that. But Discord and Slack and Meetup is generally more professional, and LinkedIn or Twitter sometimes as well. And so yeah, I learned a lot about how to kind of do in-person interviews and like all of these things while learning my internship. And like, number one thing is like, don't be afraid to ask for informational interview. Don't be afraid to ask for a chat, because like the worst thing that happens is they say no, and that is okay. That's totally normal. Sometimes people are too busy or just like miss your message, and that's totally normal. Nothing you did wrong. But make sure you're clear about your intentions. Just say like, oh, I would love to schedule a 30-minute coffee chat with you at this time. Are you available? And just like send them a calendar invite, and just be clear about intentions, and as well as like how much time and like what you want to get out of it, and like what you want to learn from that. Worst thing you say is no. Kevin asks, how do you ease into asking these type of questions? Yeah, so I definitely like to see how the conversation is going. It really depends. Over time, you definitely like seeing the opportunities like over experience, like over time you do it. But generally speaking, like sometimes at the end when like people are like, oh, do you have any more questions? And that's when I would slide that in, or yeah, I'll just like somehow weave that in. But it makes sense if people talk about if the hiring manager talked about having an intern or their internship experience, then I would ask them. So it just really depends. Just make sure it's natural. Like there's no like right or wrong answer. Just like kind of don't somehow like jump into that question right away, but like after you warm up, after learning about the person a little bit more. So really case by case basis, but when it feels right, when the topic makes sense, then bring it up. But yeah, my next takeaway is don't ask for a job. Well, I never directly asked for a job, but I hinted at it, and it looked really, well, not looked really bad, but it looked kind of bad. It was a little awkward and stuff. So for me as well, after I actually got my internship, I posted how I like, oh, I'm so happy I got an offer at EA. Like, this is my journey. I got 10 messages asking me for a referral that day. And throughout my 6 months of being at EA so far, like I've had people message me like if they can get a referral, or like chat with me for the sole purpose of getting referral. And I never refer those people because it just seems they're just like, it's very transactional. They're just using me just because I work here and like they want something from me. I'm just like, no. And I'm happy to refer people that I've chatted with, know about their background, because when people refer people, they are putting their reputation on the line to advocate for you. And so if they don't know you very well, then they don't want to do that, because it also affects their reputation as well. So that's why. But for my case, like my manager, we just like connected. So some people you just like vibe right away, and sometimes people are in a position to do that. Yes, Andrew, definitely. I don't block people. I kind of just like ignore them because I don't owe them an answer. So if people ever do that to you, you don't owe them any answer as well. Yeah, so sometimes people just do that, and it's not your job to respond to them. But yeah, so like definitely from the other direction, like don't just ask for a job. Ask about how you can learn along the way. And if they ask what you're doing this summer, or if they ask you if you're looking, then you can say yes, but they have to be the one initiating it. And that's what happened to me at EA. Like my manager asked me if I'm looking, and I was like, yes. And yeah, and the rest was history. So, but I said 400 connection points to get to that one yes, and it just takes one yes. So definitely a journey, but don't give up. And yeah, so another takeaway I learned is to focus on storytelling. And instead of like, another mistake I made in the beginning is I was like talking to a hiring manager and like I was like, yeah, I grew with design buddies and we have like this 1,000 members, and then like, and I kind of like, I was kind of off-putting because it seemed like I was selling myself and it seemed like less personable. So I would just like talk about like, oh yeah, I run this large community, it's been super fun, I learned so much along the way, and so like flexing on the numbers and stuff like that. And like, it's not a job interview, it's a way to make friends, because when you're making new friends, you don't say like, oh, hello, my name is Grace and I have 10,000 members in my design buddies group. Like that's weird. And so there's the same thing with talking to a hiring manager. It's like, make it like a friend, because sometimes they can be future coworkers, and like doing like kind of like flexing up front is a little off-putting, at least to me and to other people too, for most people. And really important thing is to follow up afterwards. Like, do follow up, say like, yeah, thanks for chatting, it was so great talking with you, I learned this, I would do this, I would read this book you suggested, or yeah, something like that. And like some action items, and just like every 3 months sometimes I'll update them to keep the connection warm. In case another opportunity pops up, I can always reach out back to them. Or sometimes if I want my portfolio reviewed and they ask how they can help me, then I can like ask them to review my portfolio as well. And also at the end, I forgot to add this, but like at the end, I would always ask for ways I can help out as well. Sometimes I would usually invite them to design buddies, and like I would sometimes, like as a new designer, I would never imagine like, how can I help out a director? I'm just a random small potato student. Like, but you'll be surprised. Like usually people are pretty shook when I ask them if I could help out because they don't have an answer for that. But sometimes people, it helps you stand out though. It shows that you you don't just want to like, you want something from them, you want to also like give back, and that also is a great trait to have. It's also good because they just like spent time with you and stuff like that. So but sometimes when they do have something to help you out with, they would love feedback on their project, and so you can give them feedback, learn more about the company, and just help each other out. So definitely make it a two-way street, because networking is making a friend, and both parties should benefit equally. And so I'll talk a little bit about my internship and how I actually negotiated a full-time offer. Not negotiated, but I was kind of just given one. And so for EA, like EA is a gaming company, but you can work in games development, you can work in the tech space, you can work in marketing. So I worked in the tech branch on the experience design team. So I had 4 projects and 1 main project relating to player and employee experience. So I designed things like the EA Help homepage, some virtual events, and employee internet. So I got to work on a lot of things because we're basically the tech branch. And so we work on everything else, all the other products besides the games, but I also learned a lot more about the game, like a lot more about gamers as well. And so during a typical week, every day is quite different, but during a typical week, my team is like a 13-member team with mostly designers with some researchers and content strategists. We would have a team all hands. We have a team critique, all hands, like announcements, some of the guest speakers, team critique, where people can get feedback on anything they want with the whole team happy hour, just chilling, get to know each other. I have one-on-ones as needed with my managers and mentors, meetings with product management and engineering, the people who are involved in my project. That's why it's super important to know how to collaborate, because you'll be working with PMs, engineers, mostly engineers and PMs, most closely as a designer at the company. So that's why, going back to my early example, hackathons are super important to get experience on working with these types of fields and these types of disciplines. And I also attend like a lot of intern and employee resource group events at EA. Like they have a lot of groups like relating to like culture, different multiracial groups, and there we have a women's group, Women in Games. So like participating in these activities are super fun for me at EA. And so I learned a lot at my internship. I learned mostly, so interning is quite different than school. Like at school, you're always given something to do, like homework or something to study. And like, yeah, so school, you always told what to do, but in the real world, even at intern level, you never know. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really, really open-ended. And so how I like know I'm going the right direction is to just keep asking why. If I don't understand something, keep asking why, getting to the root of it, to making sure that design the correct feature. Like why am I doing this project, and why do users need this, or like why does the business need this, and just keep asking why to really understand all aspects of that project. And also designing for scalability, so making sure designs are scalable and different use cases and stuff like that as well. So design systems and everything as well. And how I got my full-time offer is like, I always ask to help out. Like if I had like a less busy week, or if I just had some extra time, I would ask my teammates if there's anything I could help them with. So not only would I get more opportunities and working on different branches, like before I was just working on player experience, and now I got some experience doing employee experience projects as well. And so I got more opportunities, but also it helps them. I know that I'm just like helps them like identify me as someone who like wants to put an extra effort to grow and stuff. So that also played a role in getting a return offer. I will also document like everything I learned, what I've accomplished. So oftentimes I'll document this on my team's Coda database. So it's highlighting some accomplishments, and later these can be used to negotiate a higher salary, negotiating a higher title, and so making sure you're documenting, people know what you are doing so they can offer you something higher, or like a raise or promotion, or a higher salary. So this documentation is really important to not only keep track of what you learn, but also negotiate in the long run. And so definitely communication, repeating instructions and everything as well, making sure you confirm everything. And you can also network within the company to not only just like find out what other people do, sometimes it might lead to new opportunities. So just like you like reach out and network with more people within like the company too. Yeah, so these are some resources, some fun things. Feel free to take a screenshot. This is also recorded. So these are some great resources that help. These are just the compilations of different design tools, conferences, podcasts, books, tools, yeah, everything, templates, everything. And applications, love Figma is the best. Notion's also really great for note-taking, Miro for brainstorming, and Discord for team communication. So this is just like my 4 favorite apps for design. And overall, I learned like a lot of life lessons. I learned like the worst, like don't be afraid to do things. The worst thing you can do is fail, but then it's always like a learning opportunity. And like don't listen to people who tell you you can't accomplish something. You know yourself better, and you don't have to listen to them. Like for me, I guess like when I was afraid of doing things, I would like if I ever get rejected, I always like use that as an opportunity to learn. I always ask for feedback, why I failed and what mistakes and how to be better next time. Yeah, I mean, like just like try not to fail publicly. I mean, like sometimes if you do, it's not the end of the world. Just say like, oh yeah, I did fail. I own up to this, but then this is what I learned. This is what I would do differently. Fun fact, I actually got Zoom bombed at the first Design Buddies meetup. I talked about it on LinkedIn. I talked about what I learned and what I did differently. And that post was my first post that went viral. So definitely like failing publicly, like, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I got 0 hate comments for that, surprisingly. People were only just supportive. So yeah, don't be afraid to fail publicly as well. As long as you definitely have the layer of thick skin, but like offer like, so you fail, but then you can talk about like what you learned and what you will do differently, because it shows growth, and not everybody is perfect, and it's okay, it's totally human to fail, even if it's public or not public. So it's totally okay as long as you use that and reflect in how you would and what you learned from it and what you would do differently next time. And yes, it can get you fired. Just there's like, you know, different nuances and stuff, but as long as you talk about like, yeah, you own up to your mistakes, say like, yeah, hey, I got Zoom bombed and this is what I learned and this is what I would do differently. It shouldn't be too hard. This really depends on the company. If company fails you for making a mistake that it cannot be prevented, then they're probably not a good company to work with as well. So you never know. It's totally human and natural to fail, and it's okay. You can, but it's your responsibility to take that and to learn and grow from that. And yeah, it can also be vague, definitely. Yeah, so also don't listen to people who tell you can't accomplish something. So when I started in design, I had professors telling me to stay in my lane, how I majored in bioengineering, how I shouldn't do design, how they're young kids do design, how it started too late, yada yada. And like, yeah, like even though they might be professors, they know, like they think they know the best for you, but they don't, because they're not you, and you know yourself better than anybody else. And like you don't have to listen to them. They have surely have good intentions, but yeah, but you don't owe them anything, so you don't have to listen to them. You just want to do whatever you want to do in life, as long as you're not harming anyone. And also balance is really important for long-term success, because I learned the hard way that burnout is definitely real. So make sure you do something happy that makes you happy every day, not just like working 24/7. So balance is really important, and get outside the house, get some fresh air, live a healthy life, and everything, and I'll help you have long-term success and not burn out. So yeah, that concludes my presentation. I'll be taking any questions now. You guys are welcome to connect with me on any of my social media platforms. These are just some boba bunnies I made. But yeah, so feel free to let me know any questions have in the chat, and it's getting a little dark, so I might turn on the light really quick. Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself as well if you want to ask an out loud question.
I got a question. Well, first of all, great presentation. I love it. And well, it's not a question. I just want to say your tips are really helpful. I signed up what's called a designer hangout on Slack, and I've been active on it, and hopefully that might offer me a job interview or something without a portfolio. But now after this, I'm going to use those tips to be more active and have a portfolio all set to go, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely put yourself out there. The worst that could happen is they say no. That's okay.
Yeah. And like I said, I recently joined your design buddies on Discord. So yeah, I'll go be more also active over there as well.
Awesome. Welcome to Design Buddies.
Thank you.
Oh, I see the question in chat. So Michael asks, have you ever had a clash or disagreement with other team members, such as designers versus developers, and how do you reconcile these differences? I didn't actually have a clash before, but then, so like if I ever have to have a clash, then I would just like kind of take a step back and like understand why, and just like really listen to their perspective and like why this problem is arising, and try to understand like why they're getting frustrated, if there's any, and like kind of just like answer any misunderstanding, and just like try to reach an understanding of things, and just like keeping my temper down, and just being chill, and just like trying to go into a mindset just like understanding why there's a clash, and try to reason with each other. And if someone else is like really aggravated right now, I would just like ask it later. And yeah, so that's what I would do if there's a clash. And also like people who are usually employers that definitely want the company to succeed. So I would also like try to understand why, and try to reason with them, and also communicate why I think my way makes sense to me, and also understand why their way might make sense to them, and try to reach a mutual understanding. And just like understanding, listening, and also having it tied into the overall goal of the project and how it relates to the overall goal of the company. Yeah, so the understanding and just like realigning on goals is what I would do if I ever had a conflict arise. And yeah, so Cha asks, how do you find all the testers during UX research? Yeah, that's definitely really hard. Definitely like I reward them with a gift card if it's like external, but I like post a bunch of like Facebook groups, Reddit threads, Discord groups. And yeah, it's generally pretty hard. But another thing I did to recruit a lot of participants, so this is like outside the company, when I did personal projects, is I would say like, I am designing an app to help you find your, like stay connected, like have, like maintain your connections better. So by like doing some copywriting, just like, oh, this tool can help you potentially, even though you might not ever ship it, but just frame it that way. It make people respond more. So that's how I got like over 150 responses to a survey in 24 hours for hackathon about designing a tool to help people stay connected, because I framed it in a way like, oh, this could help you put your input in, even though we didn't actually like, launch it to the public, because like things didn't work out and stuff like that. We still did that. So that's how I would do to get participants for free. And yeah, so
hello, Grace.
Hello.
Hello. This is my name is Kevin. I actually just want to add on about the team. We run the frictions. This is actually something I learned from when I was in a program in college, where if you're in a team and there's no friction, means you're designing something boring.
Mm.
So I actually, so it's like that's something to like take into consideration because maybe you're not asking these questions that you should be asking. Yeah. But there is actually a question I want to ask. So when you relating to the side projects that you've been doing, how much side projects would you consider like is a good amount? And if you do complete this project, like how do you like present these to like the right people?
Mm.
Because right now currently I'm working on 2 side projects. So far I've only presented them to like 2 of my professors. Just get some feedback. What do you guys think of this project? Where can my team go from here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if, I guess like it really depends. I honestly think like I've just done a lot of side projects, but I don't think all of that was all necessary. So for side projects, I would focus on quality over quantity because oftentimes for your portfolio and for the real world, you're often be working on like usually a few projects for long term. So I would focus on one where you can see it being launched and seeing metrics being collected and ones that other people are involved with it too. So having a team. So side projects where you can grow in your teamwork skills, your communication skills, and analytical skills. Being able to like take a product from start to finish and being able to evaluate metrics from that. And sometimes it can be a bit hard to find projects. So for personal projects, I always set my own metrics and so how I would measure success in that as well. Because that's like super, super important in design. Like making sure some number or some metric is tied to design decisions. Um, so I guess for number, generally on a portfolio, you see about 2 or 3 projects, generally 3 at least. And when you're doing a portfolio presentation at interview, generally it's a good practice to prepare 2 or 3 projects. Sometimes you only have time to talk through one in depth. Sometimes you have time to talk about all 3. So making sure you know the ins and outs of every single thing in these 3 projects, be able to answer any questions is really, really important as well. And yeah, so and to sum it up, focus on projects where you can practice teamwork, communication, and also analytical skills, collecting data. Not just design, because design is much more than that. And it's easy to kind of just do your own personal project, but you don't get the teamwork experience. And also like probably around like 2 or 3 at least to prepare for portfolio interview, which is what all interviews typically go for.
Okay. Because like from my perspective, like because I'm a UX designer, but I'm more focused on the visual side. So I would say I'm more of a UI designer because I came from an illustration background, and then this kind of was interesting because I kind of stumbled upon it when I was actually doing concept art for video games, and then the developer kind of looked at me as like you're kind of like breaking down these like concept into like steps, like what you try to design interface. So like I always try to start with something like how I got into it. It was an accident, and that was a happy accident.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. So, so would you recommend like in portfolios, like just focus on like what your strengths are, specifically? So, but I do know like UX kind of cross over with UI. So, would you say maybe just dash just a little bit on the UX part, just explain how you got to this, but then like just go full heavy on the UI? Would that be like probably the best decision?
Yeah, so it depends on your goal actually. So in a portfolio, the mistake I made before was I put everything on there. And if you're looking for a UI job, then definitely just try to include as many UI as possible. But for UX, definitely don't include too many illustrations because I also was an illustrator, so I included way too much illustrations before people got confused of what role I was applying for. And so it's important because hiring managers spend 30 seconds looking at a portfolio. So it's important to just have your work, like what field do you want to go into, front and center on your portfolio. You can definitely showcase other projects you worked on. Like for me, I actually have my update portfolio. I can send it. I just have a section called fun. So feel free to look at it. I haven't like launched it officially yet, but it's my redesign portfolio actually.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that's actually kind of the same
so
thing. I kind of did something similar like that as well.
Mm-hmm. So you could definitely like I talk to a lot of hiring managers and they love it when people like express their personality. And a way to express your personality in a portfolio is showcase your passion projects and like something that it's also creative but not necessarily relate to your career. And for me, I also have like a little fun fact section. And also you can just showcase your projects, but don't put them front and center. So for the front page, making sure that your goal role project related to your goal role is front and center, but you can have other things nested. So let's just say hiring manager is interested, you capture their attention, they want to learn more about you, then they will find your fun section and find other projects and learn more about you that way. So that's kind of how I UX my portfolio to fit these target demographics. Portfolio is also another UX project. You think about who you're designing for and how they perceive and like what kind of use cases they go through and how to optimize them paying attention to you more, or how to optimize them navigating through your portfolio.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so feel free to unmute yourself too if you would like to ask. Either way works. Otherwise, I can just like read the questions because I can't like really like read and like think at the same time as I read out loud. Otherwise, it's the awkward silence. So we're to ask, I love the idea of working in hackathons. Can you please tell us more about your experience with them? I'm curious to know how you work together in a rush time period since hackathons are fast-paced. Yeah, of course. So for me, for my hackathon experience, I started with just like doing the ones at my school, but then COVID happened and I was kind of on the whole, every hackathon was kind of unlocked to me. Unlocked meaning like I don't have to travel anymore. So for me, I usually find hackathons just by joining online groups. I just like see them and stuff like that, or people reach out to me wanting to team up. And Design Buddies is also a collaboration channel to find teammates to do hackathons with. And so, yeah, so like I would usually go with a random team. Like this is, for my experience, like I want to go with a random team each time because I can experience working with more different types of people. So I would do that and just like learn about that. But if I were wanting to win, then I would go with people I know already and I have worked with before. Yeah, because you definitely learn a lot. And the hackathons are usually 24 to 36 or 48 hours. I actually did a 3-week hackathon as well called Hack Quarantine. And like it just depends. Like I feel like now things have shifted. Everything is like remote now. So like the different norms and everything as well. So generally in a real person hackathon, people who are competitive, they stay up the whole 24 hours. For online, people typically have their own lives to run at the same time because not everyone's in the same room. So like I've only done like a few real person hackathons, but I done mostly online after COVID. And like yeah, just really different each time because sometimes like I would just like want to do it for fun, not wanting to win or anything, just get to do it for fun. So yeah, and also like when you're working with a hackathon, and depends on your goal. Your goal could just be do it for fun, do it to win, do it to learn. Make sure you communicate that with the rest of your team, and just make sure everyone's aligned. Let's say if you want to win, you want to make sure all your teammates want to win as well. So communicate that at first when you're forming teams is my biggest tip when going with randoms or going with people at a hackathon. Making sure your goals are aligned and making sure that your interests are aligned as well to making sure there's no arguments down the line. And usually for hackathon, I would structure my schedule like following this order. Like the first meeting would be like, so I'll give you an example. So let's just say it's a 24-hour hackathon. So in the first 3 hours, like after the prompt is announced, I would schedule a meeting with my team and talk about, narrow it down, like gather, like solidify our idea and just like really decide and agree upon an idea and like determine roles and the roadmap of the project for the next 24 hours. So that's what I would do in the first like an hour meeting, get to know each other, understand roles, and also like get the idea down. And then I'll just like work independently. We meet 2 or 3 more times to kind of realign on things. And like usually for a hackathon, I just kind of like do it case by case basis, but generally I check in a few times and meet a few times as needed. And then like before I submit, making sure that I record and have everything ready at least an hour before, because sometimes things don't happen, things don't work out, and like so it's good to get everything in earlier than expected because it's less stressful and sometimes websites might crash. So making sure your goals are aligned in the beginning. Everybody has a clear role, and everyone has, and also like readily online so I can answer any questions, hop on a Zoom call anytime that you want to clarify something, and making sure everyone's just check in, communicate, clear roles, and clear goals are aligned is my biggest tip for a successful hackathon. And also balancing out people's skills. So like at a hackathon, generally like one designer / PM and then plus like a few developers, front end, back end, plus design is generally a good balance of team, or someone with business, or someone with the research. So just making sure it's a good balance for a hackathon is also important. So good team balance, clear goals, clear roles, clear goals and roles, and also finish it up earlier because things just oftentimes don't work out in the last minute. Yeah, any other questions? What anime do you recommend watching? Yeah, great question. I like the shonen anime actually. I like an anime like Attack on Titan, Full Metal Alchemist. Yes, One Punch Man is great. I listen to a lot of anime songs while I'm working, so I include the One Punch Man theme song. I haven't watched too much anime recently just because I don't have time to, but like in the past I watched a lot of Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, Fairy Tail, Naruto, and oh yes, My Hero Academia is a great one. Super motivational, super wholesome. And I also liked Fullmetal Alchemist. Erase is a good one. Death Note is great. Yeah, I'm a really mainstream anime person, like, and I watch mostly the mainstream stuff, and the shonen theme / the action adventure themed is what I like to watch. But my favorite one of all time is probably Attack on Titan. I watched season 1, season 2 in a week, so it's really good. I've never watched an anime so fast. But yeah, any other questions?
Hey, I'm not sure if y'all can hear me right
Yeah, I
now.
can hear.
Okay, just checking because I was like requesting to unmute. Two things. One, I kind of want to follow up on what Rimsha was saying and say two things. One, how did you know that you were ready to do a hackathon? You were self-taught, you mentioned.
Yeah, great question. I don't know. I just did it. For me, like, I feel like a lot of people that I talk to also struggle with this question. Like, how do I know if I'm ready? I also kind of struggle with it, but for me, I just kind of went for it because hackathon, like, generally, like, you don't really have it's a good experience to get without having experience because like problem solving, thinking through a problem is something like generally everybody can do, but like practicing that at hackathon is also important. And usually people don't expect, it depends on your team, usually don't expect you to have experience as well. So yeah, I guess like for me, how did I know? I just went for it. I didn't like ask for anyone's permission or like I guess for me personally, like I finished a class about design and kind of learned the fundamentals and felt like I was prepared. So at least knowing the fundamentals, knowing how Figma works and knowing a little bit about color theory, these like design fundamentals also helps as well. So yeah, just having a little basic knowledge about a little bit of everything in the process helps. But then you don't like you don't really need to have too much experience before you start. It's just like it's good to know like how to use Figma at least, and how to prototype is a good skill to have. But yeah, other than that, like don't let anything like stop you from doing hackathons. If something's interesting, then go for it. Because I definitely, when I work with random people, like I had people with all different types of experiences. Some people like they just didn't know anything about hackathons or had no experiences in them. So there's that too. So I would just say anytime, realistically, because you'll like find out more. And like when you do hackathon, you also find out like, oh, what was hard? What did I miss? Or like, what was challenging about this? So it'll give you the direction of where you want to focus on more. Let's just say, oh, you thought prototyping was hard. Then you can like practice more prototyping and be better at your next hackathon. So it's kind of just like doing it and just like going for it and just like learning from each experience. Never a right or wrong time to do hackathons.
That's good to know. Thank you so much. On that note, some of what you mentioned is familiar to me in job hunting, but I feel like hackathons in general are kind of a hole in a lot of people's knowledge. I don't know if that might be a blog topic worth writing about in the future, but I think a lot of people could benefit from your experience. And final point before I let anyone else chime in, if you like My Hero, you should check out Demon Slayer. It's real good.
Oh yeah, that was on my list. I listened to the music of Demon Slayer. But yeah, hackathons are great. I feel like most people like don't really like they feel scared, intimidated, but like hackathon, the community is super wholesome. Like there's a whole like community behind it. Like community of people who do hackathons. They're super great. I did a lot of talks at hackathons too. They're always super supportive. People just like want to get together to build stuff, and people are generally really passionate about what they're doing and just want to build things and grow things in that too. So don't be intimidated. Most people are nice, and you meet a lot of lifelong friends that way. these fun 3 a.m. conversations. Sometimes there's recruiters at hackathon too, so it's a great way to network as well. So yeah.
Oh, cool. You mentioned Design Buddies is with a collaboration channel is a good place to look for those.
Yeah, so in events, we have an events channel. So like you can find hackathons, people posted there, and also have a collaboration. So you can find teammates to do these hackathons with in Design Buddies, because it kind of breaks the ice a little because you already have something in common. So it's easier to reach out to people that way.
Cool.
So that's how and a lot of people have found their teammates with in Design Buddies.
Cool. All right, I didn't want to monopolize everything. I'll hand it over to Jordan as a question in chat. Thank you, though.
Yeah, of course. So Jordan asks, do you find there's a big difference in the engineering and design communities? Yes. So for me, it was a little different because I was in bioengineering, which is different than computer science. Well, I was mostly in bioengineering. I was also in computer science engineering. Depends on which engineering. So in bioengineering, this is from my personal experience. People were really competitive. People just want to one up each other, and I just for me, when I was an undergrad, I majored in bioengineering and minored in computer science and engineering. All my friends were in computer science and art. I don't know if that has to do with anything, but I just didn't really get along with too many people for my major. And I just found that they were just super competitive, super oh my god, they got this research grant. It's just really competitive that way. From my own one person personal experience. But generally people are nice. At least for engineering, I'm just assuming software engineering. Yeah, they're super nice. Usually people are super friendly. But as a woman in CS, so sometimes in class, in my computer science classes, people in labs, so just an example. There's this one person in my class who I think was a few years older than me, and in lab he was like, oh my god, I'm so good at this, look at me using all these tools, I am so good, look at me, I'm so smart. And just making me feel oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I don't know this, so I'm not supposed to be here, I'm not supposed to be studying CS as a woman in CS. And the funny thing is that a lot of times these people are faking it, because I actually went to office hours during finals week, and he was there with me begging to pass the class, while in lab he was flexing all these tools and stuff and making me feel dumb. So yeah, that's my little story behind that as a woman in CS previously. So, but generally, hackathons communities are super welcoming, super wholesome, because people just want to make stuff, and people as an entrepreneur, as someone in tech, collaboration is a huge aspect of it. To succeed, you need to collaborate, you need to work well with people. So generally people are super nice, ready to help and everything. A lot of mentors, there's great resources in design. We actually partnered as Design Buddies with Amazing Design People List, which is a list of mentors. And yeah. And so Karen asked, are there any hackathons you recommend? Yeah, I actually haven't done, I did Hack Now in Berkeley, which is really nice. There's great speakers. Ivy Hacks is another one I spoke at, and people seem pretty friendly. I also spoke at Dandy Hacks. People seem really friendly as well. So on DevPost is a great resource for hackathons. So I'll put this in the chat. DevPost, there are lists of all the hackathons. You can find them there too. So yeah. So usually there's hackathons that happen every year. There's Hack Now, there's Ivy Hacks, Dandy Hacks. There's so many. There's Spectra. Spectra is a great one because it's an all women's hackathon. And I spoke at Spectra. People are super nice. So there's so many hackathons. So look on DevPost. I can't, because I've only done 3 plus a bunch of design challenges. So those are a bit different. But everyone has its pros and cons. So I actually haven't been to, there's also a lot more that I haven't been to. So definitely check out DevPost. So I guess last question, because I know, or I can just answer a few more. I have a few more minutes more, but I know we're kind of at time. But Ishwarya asks, which platform do you recommend to post screener surveys or recruit users for personal projects? Because I have tried Facebook groups, I haven't had much luck. Facebook groups, yeah, Facebook. There's this actually student service group on Facebook that I posted it, but I didn't get too many responses. So yeah, I just post on LinkedIn. I frame it in a way that oh, I'm designing this product to help you improve your life, and just do your copywriting that way and stuff like that, and that helps. Yeah, so Reddit, Facebook, Slack groups, Discord groups, in appropriate channels for sharing surveys. Don't share it in the general chat, share it in appropriate channels is what I would recommend. In these communities is another place you can share surveys. And yeah, cool. if that's all, feel free to, anything else?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation. That was really cool.
Thank you.
I learned new resources that I can point people to. And, we really appreciate you coming in and talking to us. And if you didn't notice, Grace posted her, I have to scroll back up, but her LinkedIn in the chat. So you can continue the conversation as well. And yeah, point people toward the YouTube talk when it's posted.
Yeah, I'll definitely share in Design Buddies as well. And yeah, cool. Thank you for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, for sure. I'm grateful that Jasmine reached out to you and got this going for us, because it was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jasmine.
Well, I hope all of you have a great rest of your night, or evening or morning, depending on where you are. Take care, everybody. And yeah, Grace, thanks again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, everybody, I'm going to stop recording. Let's see.